There's only one shortcut in life: learning from people who are ahead of you on a path you want to take. You want to learn how to speak English fluently and confidently? Go ahead.
Goodness, there's so much in this conversation.
I mean, sure, I understand the appeal of the superstar native speaking YouTube teacher, but doesn't it make more sense to learn from the best native-like English teachers? At around this part of the video, I will give you a list of the best non-native English teachers on YouTube. I mean, these non-native English teachers on YouTube are the ones that can truly, authentically, veridically, factically show you how it's done. So the goal is to learn specifically the biggest mistake they made and the small but important things they did differently. And by learners that are ahead of you in their learning process, I don't just mean English teachers, it could be anyone in your radar. There are 7 questions that you can ask people directly or kind of figure out by getting to know them or hearing them talk about their learning. So the first question is, what's something most people think is important that I can skip entirely? And by the way, I'll give you a short answer to these questions myself. What's something that most people think is important that you can skip entirely? According to me, my answer is overthinking translation. I personally found translating or learning through translation to be quite effective. I don't mean communicating through translation, meaning translating word by word from my Spanish into English as I'm trying to get my meaning across, but learning by taking advantage of translation. I have a background in translation, so I understand how it works, so I guess that is an advantage. But to me, translation opened me up to the idiomaticity of English. For example, for my Spanish-speaking audience, how do you say no tengo ganas in English? I couldn't be bothered. How do you say hacer un trámite in English? To run an errand, to run some errands. I've expanded my vocabulary a lot by simply speaking Spanish in my everyday life and then thinking, how do I say this in English? I'm sure that translating it word by word wouldn't work, so I guess there must be an idiomatic expression for it. Then I would tuck it away in my head until I heard it again in English and say, oh, that's how you say it. If you can use translation to your advantage in a way that doesn't interfere with your ability to think in English, then by all means, go ahead and use it. Something else I would add is don't stress your memory too much. You don't really need to memorize anything. Like there is a long list of something that you think you should memorize. From my experience, I never really try to memorize lists of things. Like for example, you have the verbs and then the past simple form and the past participle form. Some people would say, okay, well, you should memorize these. Yes, you should store these words in your memory, but personally I wouldn't worry so much about doing a whole memorization session where I'm trying to memorize all these words. I just made sure I encountered the words being used many times so that I would acquire them naturally through input. But anyway, question number 2 is, what's something important in your routine you wished you started sooner? This is an easy one: speaking English every single day, getting the necessary practice. I always say you might be doing some cool things for learning English, you might be following some cool methods, but if you're not getting the necessary daily practice, you're missing out, and that should be your number 1 priority if your goal is to speak English fluently and confidently. Get yourself in the mindset of, I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to figure out the way in which I can have the opportunity to speak English every day or X amount of times per week. That's up to you. Here's a practical video on how to do that, and you can also find the link down in the description below. Question number 3, what channels have led to the building of your highest quality relationships? I love this question, and here's the thing: you won't ever meet a fluent and confident English speaker who hasn't made at least 2, 3 very solid connections in English. Friendships, relationships that encourage them to push past their limitations. There's a beautiful African proverb that supports this notion. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. From my experience, by far the best virtual channel that you can use to this end is Facebook, specifically Facebook groups. And by the way, I created one called the English LevelUP community, where motivated English learners just like you come together to develop the tools and mindset to become fluent and confident English speakers. If you're not there yet, find the link in the description below as well. Question number 4, what's something you did radically different from your peers 5 years ago? This one might be the best question so far. My answer is I voraciously pursued speaking practice, and I almost completely removed Spanish from the media I consumed. And it's been like that for the last 10 years now. Question number 5, and this is the toughest one. What are the biggest struggles you face today, and how can I start thinking about those ahead of time? And should I? Yeah, so it's a tough one. I feel like I'm speaking English very well when I want it, when I'm energized and alert. But then when I'm a bit bored or fatigued, I feel my English falls down to a base level that could be a lot higher. Should you start thinking about that issue ahead of time and start thinking of ways that you could solve it? I don't think so. I think you should focus on doing your own thing, and later on you could think about ways of solving that problem if you have it, or other issues that you might have. Question 6, it's also a tough one. What is something you believed 5 years ago that you had to unlearn to get to where you are right now? I think that as I matured over the years, I unlearned a lot of things that, although unrelated to English learning or English speaking, they do have an effect or an impact in the way I conduct myself in English. They have to do with mindset in general, the way I operate and the way I think about myself. For example, I started uploading videos to this channel back in 2016, and that 2016 version of myself couldn't have continued making videos, and so that is the reason why I stopped for 5 years, and now just last year I started uploading videos to this channel again. And the last question, question 7, what's something you didn't pay attention to or ignored early on, and then how to learn the hard way? Right, so for me this is grammar, and this is very early on, and to get a full account of my journey with the English language, I suggest you watch this video right here, which is my timeline of English, and I also link it down in the description. So in the very beginning, I didn't like grammar, and to be honest, I didn't like a lot of aspects about English. I was just focused on the outcome. I had this dream of speaking English fluently and confidently, but I didn't really enjoy the process, or I wasn't willing to sacrifice myself, and so grammar was the first thing I hated. And so having this hatred towards grammar set me in the wrong trajectory, and after a while I quit learning English. However, after taking some time off, I reset and I found the inspiration and the drive to restart my learning process, and in just 18 months I was able to completely master the grammar of English. And by the way, that's the beauty of grammar. I think it's the only thing that you can fully master to the level or even above the level of native speakers, because it's finite and it's fixed. Vocabulary and pronunciation, I feel they're now so fixed, and although they are also finite, but vocabulary and pronunciation have a lot more to it than the grammar. The grammar is very, very finite and fixed. Alright, so those are 7 great questions that you could ask someone who is ahead of you in the learning process of English. And when you ask these questions to this person, they're going to love thinking about the answers to these questions, because these are very interesting questions. Promised earlier in the video, now I will name a few non-native English teachers on YouTube that are killing it with their English. I'll start with the most well-known ones, which maybe you've already watched some of their videos, and then I'll move on to the less well-known non-native English teachers on YouTube, and some of them have fewer than 100 subscribers, but I'm naming them because I think they have something special that you can learn from them. By the way, I'm only including non-native English teachers that teach completely in English. No monolingual, no a hybrid of languages, 100% in English, because that's when you know someone has truly chosen the hardest path to succeeding in YouTube. So I'll start with who I think is the golden standard of non-native English teachers on YouTube, and that's Hadar Shamesh from Accents Way with Hadar. She's just incredible. I remember back in the day, and I'm talking about 8 years ago or something, I was looking for some videos on pronunciation. Rachel from Rachel's English was the first one that would come up, but then I started to notice Hadar, and I thought she was great, and for a long time I assumed she was a native speaker. That's just how good she is, and she's also been doing it for a long time. and I'm glad to see that she's now killing it with her YouTube channel. Next is Veronica Mark from English with Veronica Mark. From Russia, I think she's following on Marina's footsteps, and she's also fantastic. I noticed her maybe 2 years ago when she was just starting gaining success on YouTube, and she's come a long way ever since, and she's a great example of a fluent and confident English speaker. Next is Luca Lampirello from Italy, I believe. He's more in the polyglot space rather than exclusively in the English teaching space on YouTube. He's also an incredible speaker, and he's very knowledgeable about how to learn English and languages in general. Next is Naila Farhana. I think she is from Indonesia or maybe from the Philippines. She is just amazing. She could fool you and make you think that she is a native English speaker for a long time until you realized she's not.
Build my fluency both in my target language and also my main dominant language, which is English.
And every time I watch one of her videos, I am shocked at how much she knows about English learning. She also has a pretty sizable audience following her. Then Santi Young, he's a very small up-and-coming YouTuber in the English teaching space. He has fewer than 100 subscribers at this point. The thing is, Santi is more of an experienced YouTuber on a different niche on YouTube, where he has over 20,000 subscribers, and I really like Santi's vibe and how he conducts himself, how confident he is in front of the camera.
Esperanto and Toquipona. And that is because these languages, well, two of them are constructed languages, meaning made-up languages, and the other one, you could argue, is a dead language, even though still people speak it, and particularly academics or some people.
Next is Up Your English with Nader. Now, I don't know much about this channel. I just watched 2 or 3 videos from Nader, and I saw he is great. I think he's from Portugal.
Like you're not improving, you feel like there is something wrong with you, or
the few videos that I watched from there were great, so I definitely recommend you go and check out his channel. And the last one is English with Benya Pak. His accent is amazing, and I found out about Benya when I saw him on a video with Marina from Marina's English.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to this quick video. Welcome back to a channel where we level up and never look back. And today I'm going to teach you how to make the TH sound. Well, actually, sounds, because there's 2. The TH.
He has a cool vibe, and definitely recommend you go and watch his videos. He's doing some pretty cool shorts as well. Definitely worth checking him out. So let's wrap up this video and let's do a quick recap of the 7 questions that you can ask someone who is ahead of you in their learning process. Number 1 is, what's something most people think is important that I can skip entirely? Number 2, what's something important in your daily routine you wish you started sooner? Number 3, what channels have led to the building of your highest quality relationships? Number 4, what's something you did radically different from your peers 5 years ago? Number 5, what are your biggest struggles you face today? And how can I start thinking about those ahead of time? And should I? Number 6, what is something you believed 5 years ago that you had to unlearn to get to where you are now? And the last one, number 7, what's something you didn't pay enough attention to or ignored early on and then had to learn the hard way? Hope that was an impactful lesson for you. If it was, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you also like this video. That allows this video to do a lot better and to get in front of more people's eyes. And with that said, it's time for me to say goodbye. I wish you have an amazing rest of your day, rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.